It's Friday, August 29th. Let's talk PlayStation. So let's start off with probably the most obvious news story that I'm sure a lot of you are already pretty well familiar with, but this past week the PlayStation Network was attacked, violently, maliciously attacked to the point where it was brought offline. You probably couldn't log in, you probably couldn't use the PlayStation Store, things like that. So the group behind it, apparently, you know, they're taking responsibility for it. Of course, we don't know for 100% fact, but the Twitter account Lizard Squad, which is a certain group that, you know, does stuff like this, so they DDoS attacked the PlayStation Network. Now, DDoS is not necessarily a hack, but more so, in layman's terms, they're sending a lot of artificial traffic to Sony's end, and so much to the point where it becomes a problem for the service provider. And, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, Sony didn't ask for this, right? Nobody asks to get attacked, much like when Sony got attacked back in 2011 to the point where it was an actual, you know, security breach into their system and they had to be offline for, you know, upwards to over a month to repair the PSN, but, you know, and place better security measures. But yes, this definitely did happen this past week, so PSN was down for like at least a day, right? And it wasn't just PSN, actually. Apparently this group also attacked Xbox Live, and I don't know if they were also behind the other websites that were attacked throughout the week, but a lot of other websites and services were attacked as well with, I believe, DDoS attacks. Now, probably one of the more twisted things about this whole scenario is that the group behind these supposed attacks posted a tweet kind of threatening the Sony Online Entertainment president, John Smedley. So John Smedley was actually on a flight, and this group tweeted that there were possibly bombs on the guy's flight. And, you know, this is a very serious thing. Like, even so much as a tweet, airlines and that stuff, they take that shit very seriously. So actually, John Smedley's flight was diverted, and it had to make an not an emergency landing, but it was redirected to, I believe, Phoenix, so the plane could be inspected to see if there were actual explosives or, you know, anything of the sort. And yeah, I mean, that stuff's very, very serious. Like, if you tweet at all, you know, regarding a certain airline and bomb threats or anything of the sort, like that stuff is very serious. And supposedly you know, the authorities have been involved, because that actually is what happens. I believe the one famous story is some random girl pretended she was Jihad and tweeted to a certain airline, and she actually did end up getting arrested. So yeah, that stuff's pretty serious. So you know, it's a shame that stuff like that happens, but I mean, it happens. I mean, this is the world we live in. If there's any sort of positivity to come out of this news story, it's that Sony handled this kind of well. You know, back in 2011 when they first had a PSN attack and it was down for, like, you know, over 40 days, Sony didn't handle that situation the best because they weren't telling consumers what was going on. It was like forever until they finally said, like, hey, credit cards might have been taken or anything. But with this kind of scare, it was only a few hours until the PlayStation blog posted something and saying, you know, this is what's happening, no information is out yet, blah blah blah. So it's good to see that kind of Sony, like, learn their lesson in that respect. But yeah, I mean, if anything, it shows that they're more ready to handle a scenario like this. But I guess one underlying thing is that the supposed group behind all this actually did tweet a very excellent point, which is that Sony is, you know, more than likely not investing in DDoS protection, which is something they could have had to possibly prevent an attack like this. But at the same time, I look at that and think, you know, no matter how much security you have, it seems like it's never enough. You know, even if the FBI gets friggin' hacked into and shit and gets attacked every so, like, it seems like there's no level of security that's ever enough. But, you know, does seem like a pretty good point. Anyway, let's move on to some other stuff. Minecraft PS4 has been sent back to Sony, so 4J has worked on that pretty damn quick, so hopefully it'll get approved and it will get on the PlayStation Store very soon. They also updated us on the PlayStation Vita version, which apparently isn't basically the timetable is the Minecraft PS4 is getting sent back to Sony, Xbox One's almost done, and Vita needs a little bit more work. So it looks like they're, you know, that's kind of the timetable you should expect. So who knows how far off Vita is? Sounds like it could be 1 to 2 months. Who really knows? But it's definitely, you know, it should be very soon. 4J also mentioned that the PS3 version does have an update in processing right now, so an update should go live on the PS3 version of Minecraft for, you know, to actually do world transfers. So when you update the PS3 version, you will be given the ability to possibly transfer that save to Vita or PS4. Speaking of PlayStation 3 Firmware Update 4.65 is out right now. I believe it's optional, and the option is, do you want more software stability? And let me give you the answer. It's always yes. So let's talk real quick about PlayStation Home. Does anybody remember what this thing is? Probably not, because not many people use it. At least not now, I believe. Although it did do pretty well when it actually launched. It made Sony a lot of money. PlayStation Home is going to be getting closed in Japan and Asian territories in March 2015. That was recently announced, so that is the time frame you've got if you live in any of those areas and you use PlayStation Home. There's no closure announcement for any other territories, but Japan and most Asian territories, PS1 is going to be done for. So one thing I want to talk about with you guys this week is Sony Computer Entertainment Europe President and CEO Jim Ryan was speaking to the Metro, I believe, and discussed kind of PlayStation's future and where PlayStation could possibly be and what it could possibly become. And we've touched on this topic a few times, but this is one of those situations where it's a long-term thing. It's the unforeseeable future, I guess, because technology is kind of hard to predict when you're talking like 5+ years. You know, it's you know, somewhat predictable within, you know, maybe a 2-year span, but if you're going past 5 years or upwards further, you know, it's really kind of an unpredictable beast, because who knows what kind of, you know, technologies can be birthed in that amount of time, because it moves so rapidly. And the thing about, you know, the discussion we even, what was it, last week we kind of touched on it, was, you know, the relevancy of consoles and, you know, where this industry is kind of going. And Sony's Jim Ryan touched on the topic of PlayStation possibly coming, you know, a service at some point. You know, if consoles do ever get to a point where they're possibly completely irrelevant, or, you know, we do move to a sort of a point where all games are streaming, you know, where would Sony fall in that category? Because they've been a hardware maker for, I believe, 20 years now. I mean, very close to it. So they're a hardware maker. So what, you know, at where would they be if hardware does, you know, ceases to exist, or ceases to sell, or ceases to make the money? And Jim Ryan kind of touched on that, kind of again relating to PlayStation Now, saying, you know, we have PlayStation Now, and that could possibly be something that would be, you know, would be moving forward. I believe the interviewer asked Jim Ryan, you know, could PlayStation Now turn into PlayStation 5, because there wouldn't be another piece of PlayStation hardware, you just use a service to play possible PS5 games. And Jim Ryan responded saying he would not use that word at all, or that phrase, PlayStation 5. He wouldn't say that whatsoever, but rather, you know, it's certainly a possibility. Not to say it's PlayStation 5, and not to say that it's in the next 5 years, not to say that it's in the next 10 years, but it's certainly possible. And I'm pretty sure I talked with you guys about this a long time ago in some random-ass episode of LTPS, but, you know, it's smart on Sony's part to look that far into the future. Not necessarily, you know, they're not going to do it immediately, right? Or they're not going to work on it immediately, but rather they're prepping themselves for it with the start of PlayStation Now. You know, they always keep saying PS Now is a beta. We're testing the waters. We want to see what people think about it. Help us build on prices. Help us build on the quality of the service and how we can lower latency. And it's, you know, it's them kind of testing the waters, because they, you know, they see how the market is growing, right? They see how the market's changing. More people are moving to mobile and tablets, or, you know, more people aren't buying consoles as much as they used to. Software sales maybe aren't nearly as much as they used to be. They look at all these things and they think to themselves, okay, well, how do we adjust and change to that market? And maybe PlayStation could possibly PlayStation could possibly be a service at some point. I'm not saying it's going to be. Hell, even Jim Ryan's not saying it's going to be, but it's a possibility, because Sony wants to stay relevant in the market, and they want to keep making money in this market, because they do pretty well in it. When looking at PS4 sales, I mean, the system's still selling incredibly well every single week, and it's consistently outselling Xbox One and the Wii U. You know, it's the one console that is kind of staying relevant. It is kind of making hardware relevant. But it's just smart on Sony's end to really kind of, you know, broaden their approach. That's why they're doing stuff like Morpheus, consoles, and PlayStation Now. They're not just trying to solve PS4's problem of not playing PS3 games, but more so to also kind of test the waters of what PlayStation could possibly be in 5 to 10 years. Alright, those are just some of the news stories I want to talk about with you all this week. Be sure to check out this week's episode of Ryan on Gaming, which is, are certain video games actually overrated? You're probably wondering what the hell does that even mean, but hey, click it and maybe you'll see the actual talking point I was trying to make. I'll finally be posting a new game review, which I haven't done in forever. Sorry about that. Again, I've been super busy. You'll also notice I'm still super lazy on replying to comments, but I've been super busy. I'm taking on a second job, so I've had like no time. I'm always either sleeping or trying to play games or trying to have a social life. But I'll be reviewing Infamous First Light, so that'll be coming next week. No time, no idea when, but I'll review that. And if you guys like game reviews, like let me know. I'll do more. I'll try and find time for them. But review videos are like the hardest to do because there's a lot of cuts, and you know, I do like to do them in a sort of professional style. Like I write a script for them, and I do a voiceover for it and everything. I like doing them though. So if you watch them and you like them, let me know. I'll do more of them. Anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Biniecki. Thank you so much for talking with me, and I'll see you guys all next Friday.